So today's going to be super special because I am excited to share my best friend to the world, but also we have such a great story together, Sharon, and I'm so excited for people to see like what goes on behind the scenes because I know people see us out together or in photos, but really sharing just where you are in life and what you're doing and how each of us, how our worlds have collided again and what we're doing to kingdom work, but also business. So welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. It's such an honor to be here with you today.
Yeah. So maybe we'll start by sharing how we met.
Yes.
Do you want to do that?
It's hard to share that without chuckling, you know, just all the memories and things. But so way back in high school, it was 11th grade, right?
It's almost 30 years,
That's
by the way,
wild.
since we graduated.
I don't know how that happens, but we haven't gotten older. So I don't know how that happens.
We haven't.
But high school, in Tampa, there in Tampa, Florida, you came over, transferred from another school. And I remember the very first day that I met you was in ensemble class.
Yeah, that's right.
We were both in ensemble together, which I think it was about 10 others, right?
Yeah.
In this small ensemble vocal group. And we had to both audition for, apparently, right? And we were in it. And I just remember we had to go around the circle and introduce ourselves. And I remember, because you were a new student, and I had been at that school for a couple years. And so I was like, oh, she's new. So we went around and I remember that day meeting you. And then from there, it's like, oh my goodness.
And then we started singing.
Yep.
And then it was like, at that point we realized, okay, it was me, you, and Christy. And we were doing stuff together, and we had the best teacher,
the
Tracy.
best teacher, and the trips that we would take for our competitions within the ensemble were just the memories from that. I can't talk about them without laughing.
No, because they were actually dangerous to some extent. I mean, when I think back of how the things I did in high school, I mean, poor Tracy, number one. I just have to thank her.
We love you, Tracy.
Yeah, so she had so much grace with me.
Yes.
But now I see my own kids and I'm like, if they ever did something like that, I would kill them.
You'd hang them up, right?
Seriously. So it's really crazy. But, even after high school, we sang for a while and we did some fun stuff. Like
for sure,
the radio station and the Yankees and all these things. And then I had gone away to college. We went to college here together.
Don't forget about the one semester that we did together at HCC.
That's right. We did. And it didn't work out because we didn't think we needed college, which we really didn't. But I did go away to Liberty for a few years. And about that time, I think you got married.
Yep.
Had a baby. I came back. Sable was born. So we reconnected working at the makeup counters, which I loved, by the way.
Right. So much fun. I miss it. Because now I feel like I don't know anything that's out there these days. There's so much skincare and all the things. And I'm like, when you're in that space, you know all about the things that are new and great. I feel like I'm kind of out of that realm now. So
I think in a weird kind of way, though, it is in our DNA. I used to love making women who sat down and didn't know anything about their skin or their skincare, making them feel like $1 million when they got up to leave. And they're like, my skin has never felt this good or never looked this good. And I think that somewhere down below in both of us, we have that same chip that we've carried into where we are now.
Yes.
We always want to improve situations for people or improve businesses or improve how individuals view themselves. And I think that is what's so cool about where we are now.
Yes.
Now, I know even after we left the makeup counters and I was going into the mortgage world and you went back into the ministry world.
Yep.
So touch a little bit about your time in the ministry world and what you did, but how that served you and where you are now as far as ministry is concerned.
For sure.
With the church.
Yeah. So when I was in ministry in that world, I was always kind of in the music world, the worship world. That's just always been my heart, my passion, leading worship. And so the times that I was on staff at a couple of different churches over the years, you just were referring to, was always in that worship space and working with our volunteers, with our worship team and our vocalists on the team. And I think over that span of time, I think when you're working with people so closely, especially when people are in a volunteer position, it's such a different dynamic because you're working with people who are giving of their time and their talents. It's a volunteer position. So I feel like I learned so many things about leading people. And really, to me, I learned through that span of time that leadership really is just serving. It's serving people. And so to me, I love that time and space where I was in the ministry full time doing that, because it's, it really taught me really leading people is just serving them. And how can we serve them as they're serving the church? And it's
So
kind of
good.
like hand in hand, kind of, I just always view it as like it's teamwork. I may be on staff here in this position of leading this vocal team, or, whatever it may be, but really it's a team effort. And so I walked away from that, space in that full-time ministry, just like really leadership is just serving. I think it was just such a valuable lesson,
Yeah.
So.
And that's still what you do today. And then coming back, you've been here almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yes.
So what a
Wild.
blessing it was to be able to have you come back in as my executive assistant, which has allowed me to grow, to do so much. But just what you learned in ministry with leading, you brought that same skill set over and incorporated it into my businesses, which I've seen the fruit of, which has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the funniest things is when we first started working together, you said at that time, you're like, I just feel like God's got something so much bigger. Like it's not just this, or it's not just that. And watching what he's done in 3 years with both of us and using our skill sets together to the one word I always said was, I'm not in ministry. And you'd always say, well, I'm not doing like I'm used to the ministry world. And I think that's such an awful thing to say.
Yeah.
What I've realized and felt really convicted about is, we're all in ministry in some way, shape, or form. If we call ourselves believers, as a business owner, I saw God do so much more than I ever dreamed or thought was possible, because the truth is that we are in ministry.
Yes.
Like we're either saying, yes, I'm in ministry, and yes, I'm a business owner, but I'm in ministry first and foremost to influence people so that others can see Christ in me, whatever that looks like.
Yes.
And so when we combined that and started working, and what we've seen happen over the last few years, like it just gets me excited.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I actually, when I first, came back, it was March of 21 as your executive assistant, made that decision, felt like the Lord just like, yep, this is the step. And I remember we were in your car, and it was like the first couple of weeks, and I'd come back and we had that conversation, and you were like, I just feel, you had even said, I feel a shifting. I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, I just feel like there's so much more kingdom-minded things that the Lord has for you. And I feel like you, from that moment, it's like you gave your yes. You're like, okay, Lord, I don't really know what all you're doing, but you gave your yes for that opportunity to expand into maybe like more kingdom-minded things, and give your yes to like, well, yeah, I am in ministry and I'm going to do ministry work, even though it may look different than like you're not on staff at a church,
right?
But you're still in ministry. And then I had to give my yes too, like, okay, I'm shifting out of maybe a full-time ministry position, which felt awkward. I'm like, well, what does this mean, Lord? But I knew that that's what I was supposed to do. And then to see us kind of be able to team up, we both gave our yeses. And after that moment, it's like, then these doors just started opening for different ministry
for
opportunities.
Both of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was just really cool. But it's like we both got to that point together. We're like, okay, I don't really know what the Lord is doing, but we're just going to give our yes and step out.
That's right.
And then these doors open, and we're both kind of start stepping out in, different avenues and, the journey, but together, which is really cool to see how the Lord has orchestrated that over the past few years. So,
and I think there's so many women out there too that struggle with friendships that are like the depth to what we have. I think it's such a blessing, because it's a Jonathan and David scenario. I know it is for me. I know that there's areas that you are so strong in and that you brought to the table in my businesses to where I'm like, I could never do that. I mean, go see Sharon. Like, if you want the warm and fuzzies, go see Sharon. And you always leave people feeling, like you said, empowered and great about being part of the team. And you did bring that from ministry, but I just think it's the anointing that you, Sharon, have on your life, that you touch people that way.
Oh,
so it's been a blessing.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I know it's not always
too.
been easy.
Right.
We have very similar stories with being single moms and raising kids, for a while on our own. And for you, I think that women would love to hear, like, God can still use you.
Right.
Right? He has. And how he's blessed you and where you're at today. I mean, you walked away from ministry when you were in Lakeland,
right,
not even knowing if you were going to go back on the platform.
Right.
And just like seeing what he's done in the last 2 years of you being down here in Bradenton and the people
Yes.
you're impacting.
Yeah.
But so can you tell us a little bit about
For
that?
sure. Yeah. I think one of the things I can speak to is like a lot of times, at least this was true for me in ministry, we can sometimes lose sight of who we are as opposed to what we're bringing to the table and our giftings and how we're serving.
Yeah.
So it's like, I was like, leading worship all my life. That was kind of like my identity. Oh yeah, I'm a worship leader. And so it made sense. I was on staff of the church, worship, leading worship. And to step away from that, it's almost like I felt like the Lord was like, okay, I just need you to remember, like, you're Sharon. I've called you to be, Sharon. And even if that means like maybe I'm not leading worship all the time like I used to, that's okay, because he's still going to use me. He's still going to do great things and open doors for me. But it's almost like he's used this time in the past few years to be like, you're okay. Like, you're still in ministry. You're still doing things for the kingdom, even though it might not look like me on the platform every Sunday morning, every Wednesday night, and making all the plans for the services. Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
So I think that's been just refreshing for me to be able to step back and just know, oh goodness, like the Lord still loves me. He's still using me, even though it's not looking like what I thought ministry, full-time, every Sunday, every Wednesday night for prayer and all the things. So that's been just so refreshing. And I think the past, just few years, I'm back in school, earning, my AA degree finally from the first semester that you and I went to back in 95,
Yeah,
so
it's amazing.
I feel like the Lord just used this season to just really kind of restore some things and bring things, back around that maybe I, left off, and walking through just, some hard years and some hard times, through, separation, subsequent divorce, and single mom in it for a while, even though I had family and friends supporting. At the end of the day, you still know it's just you.
That's right.
It's you. So just really leaning into the Lord for that. But this season has been good. And I think it's been so refreshing for me to be working with you. I always think it's so gracious of the Lord to like pair us with people who have a different perspective on things than we might. And so for me, you've been so instrumental in that the past couple of years, because I've learned your, like, the way you kind of filter through things from a business perspective. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense to do it that way. And just kind of learning that, piece of the business side, which really ministry, they
work
collide,
hand in hand.
they work hand in hand. And
Yeah.
so it's just been a really refreshing season, a lot of growth. And I can see now looking back, sometimes it's hard to step out at the time because we can't see
No.
the other side of our obedience.
Right.
But God
It's
never
scary.
expects us to know that.
Right.
Just the step of obedience and looking back and seeing, okay, Lord, I see now like what you were doing. I don't have the full picture,
Right.
but certainly have seen so much growth and see, okay, I see, Lord, why you needed me to step out and transition and do something different.
Yeah.
And
And if I could add to that, I think one of the things that's been amazing to me is for you to recognize that, like, you're the most amazing singer. Hands down, I tell everybody, no one can do it better than Sharon.
Amber's my biggest
But
fan, my biggest supporter.
To see that there's other areas that God's allowed you to see that you're
Right.
also strong in, which is leadership and systems and processes and things in business that now for you to see, hey, I'm
Right.
actually good at this and I
Right.
can bring this to the table,
Right.
has been so instrumental in helping you see what's possible for you in the
Right.
future.
For sure.
And I know now you've got the opportunity, you're working with Charlotte and growing her ministry. How has that been?
That's been wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's just the Lord being just so gracious and to kind of like, to put it so simply, like kind of check that box for me as far as like the actual, like, it's ministry. I'm pushing the kingdom forward. So that has been really awesome. But I think maybe 3 years ago, if somebody would approach me and said, hey, would you come be the ministry manager for Charlotte Gamble? I'd been like, I don't know anything about how to do that. Like, I just love on people and tell them they're wonderful. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But again, to your point, like realizing, oh, like I've kind of grown into it. I started in resources for her back in September. It's almost been a year since I've been with them,
Right.
helping their ministry. And so just like step by step, it's like, oh, like there's pieces, like you said, that I didn't even realize were in me to be able to do.
Yeah.
Because I was always just locked into
I sing on stage.
worship leader.
Right.
That's what I do, music, and, nothing else outside of that. But I
Yeah.
felt like all along the Lord's like, but hey, and so I think just like I said, just that transition coming down to her back in 21, the Lord just used it to be so instrumental, and you to be so instrumental in like pulling those things out of me. Like,
Mhm.
cause you're always like, oh, you can do anything. Sharon has big shoulders. She can do it. Just give it to Sharon. I'm like, I don't know if I can, but that's one of your gifts though, is pulling things out of people. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a very, very wonderful season of growth and just realizing, oh, I
Mhm.
can do the things and the
And
hard
sometimes it's
things.
just saying yes, and
Yes.
that's why I kept saying, I don't do ministry. I would get approached, I'm sorry, I'm not in ministry. And you're like, why do you keep saying that? You are in ministry.
Right.
So I think that's the enemy though. I think
For
even for
sure.
people who are in ministry, telling them they're not business minded, you're in ministry. Or for
Right.
people who are in business, you're not in ministry.
Yeah,
Like
like why does
that's
it
what
have to
the
be
enemy.
separate?
Yeah. And one of the people that I so admire, and I just, when I read his book, I was so blown away. But Lita Ming wrote
Yes.
the Stay in Your Lane.
Yes.
And he talks so much about the relationship of priests and kings and
Mhm.
how the Bible talks about how they work together in
Yes.
bringing kingdom-minded work to pass and
Mhm.
fulfilling ministry, right?
Mhm.
And it resonated with me. Like I
Mhm.
got it. And I think that we in
Yeah.
this partnership and this dynamic that we have, and what we're doing right now in this season is such a perfect example of what God
Yes.
intended it to be with business
Right.
people and people in ministry.
Mhm.
So, and I'm saying that because I want people who are listening who happen to be in business,
Mhm.
to know it's not just business.
Right.
Like he's propping you up because he's given you a gift. And I
Yes.
say that
Yep.
because it's a gift,
It is.
right?
It's a special anointing.
And we
Mhm.
choose like to stay in the business world, or we can choose and be obedient and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to be in the business world, but I also am just praying that God opens up opportunities for me to
Yep.
share my giftings that he so
Mhm.
graciously has given to me
Right.
and help to incorporate those in with people in ministry. Because, even for Charlotte, right? Like I so admire her and I
Yeah.
so look up to her, and she's done so many great things to impact the kingdom.
Mhm.
I'm humbled
Yeah.
that she comes to us and wants us to bring our business expertise to support her.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I always talk about Billy Graham.
Mhm.
We always hear what Billy Graham did,
Yeah.
but we never talk about who was the person who led Billy Graham to Christ, right?
Right.
Like, what an opportunity for him to be obedient, to show
Truly.
up and do that.
Mhm.
And that's what I want to be. Like, I don't care about anyone ever knowing.
Mhm.
It's about being obedient behind the scenes and supporting someone that God has placed an anointing on
Right.
that can go and reach so many people.
That's
Charlotte
right.
has done that and
Mhm.
continues to do it
Right.
and be behind the scenes and just to bring the gifting that God's given us
Right.
to the table to help her orchestrate that.
That's right.
So,
Yep. Yeah,
what an
that's awesome.
amazing
Yep.
opportunity.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
if you're a business person out there, I want to encourage you because I do believe that
Yeah.
within each business, if they could partner with someone in ministry, if they could
Mhm.
take their skill set,
Mhm.
time, talents, or treasures,
Right.
any of those things,
Yep.
and get behind someone in ministry and bring what you bring, what could happen
Right.
is mind blowing.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
It's so good. So where
So
do we
good.
go from here, Sharon? I mean,
Well, I'll tell you,
yeah.
to the woman who just a couple years ago told me, I'm not in ministry. I just want to be behind the scenes. To now you're speaking at a women's conference
I
next month,
know.
which
I'm
is very
so excited,
exciting.
but I'm so scared because it's not really something I'm comfortable doing.
I know, but isn't it cool? But you've given your yes.
I
And
just
so the
say
Lord's like,
yes.
I'm just opening these doors of
Mhm.
opportunity. And just like you would have never said that like a couple years ago that, yep,
Never.
I'm sure I'll be speaking at women's
No, I would
conferences.
have just gone with you. I would have just gone with you. So yes, it
But
is a
so
huge
it's awesome
opportunity.
to see how
It
the
is.
Lord is just orchestrating all of those things.
Yeah.
To me, who said I would be in ministry full time all my life. That's what I'm going to do. And you're like, I'm just business. And now it's like we're both doing those things because we just had to give the Lord our yes and
Mhm.
just watch Him open the doors.
Yeah, it's
So
been remarkable.
very exciting.
Humbling and remarkable at the
Yeah,
same time. I'm learning
absolutely.
something every single day.
Yeah. And the cool thing is getting to work with you. I love people. Like I've always been drawn to people that make me laugh and crack up. And since we've met in high school, that's all you've ever done is like
I
it's
laugh all
always
the time.
fun and just hilarious. And
Hilarious.
so it's like I get to go to work and work with my best friend. We get things done. We're doing things. And we also get to just laugh and remember all the memories and stuff
Totally.
and continue making new ones. And
Right.
so it's really just cool what the Lord has done.
It is. And the older you get, I think the more important it becomes to have a true friend.
Mm-hmm.
And a true friend, I mean someone who's going to call you out, which I've
Mhm.
always giving you the space. Like, I value your input at a very young age. When I was in high school, I can remember going to your house for the first time. And for me, it was like total dysfunction at my house.
Yeah.
So to go to a house that's normal where I actually saw the Holy Spirit and I saw what it was like to be around a Christian family who honored God and loved people the way your family did. Like, honestly, I would not be Amber without being exposed to that. So I'm just so grateful that I ever had that opportunity. But just seeing, like, because I was exposed to that at such a young age, I now am instituting that in my family. And so I'm forever grateful that I ever had that opportunity back when I was young.
Yeah.
Because it truly changed what a relationship with Christ looked like for me. You know, I grew up in a Christian school that was so legalistic and just so, you know, you're doing this wrong and that wrong. And it really made me hard towards Christianity or what it looked like to be a believer, to then be exposed to your family and a church that was really a church, you know? It's just crazy to think about, honestly.
It really is. Yeah.
I mean, we should probably share with them probably one of our funniest moments, which kind of set the stage for us. And I know we have many.
I know.
But there is one in particular, I think, that we still look back and are like, I can't believe we did that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just say,
where's
talk about when we sang.
Yep.
And we had determined we are getting on the radio.
Oh, yes.
We don't know how we're going to do it, but by God, we're getting on the radio. And we had called ourselves, do you remember our name?
Well, we had 3 to B.
3 to B.
Yes.
And we wrote it like 3, 2, and
the
then
number
a B.
and the B, right.
And I can remember.
So fancy.
I can remember. Yeah, we were. And we were good with names even back then.
We really were.
And I can remember we called the radio station and it was actually Scottsdale.
And when you say we, it was really Amber.
Okay.
Just she's the leader of all of this, just so we could, yes.
Which is weird because I don't even like using the phone. Do you remember? I would make you guys order pizzas. I would make you do everything.
Right.
But when it came to calling the radio station, I was like, I'm going to get us on here.
Yep.
We're doing it. And we called in and it was Mason Dixon and Scott Steele.
100.7.
100.7. And back in the day,
that was
it.
Right. You didn't have Spotify back
No.
then. There was no, like, we had to do the tough things.
It was the radio.
Call and get on the radio.
And so I called and Wilson Phillips was so big back then. So I'm like, guys, we're going to play this angle that we are the backup singers. So get ready because we're going to sing a little bit on the phone to get them to believe me.
We sure did.
And sure enough, we called, we sang a little. We just happened to be in town. We're the backup singers for Wilson Phillips. Which, by the way, anybody who listened to Wilson Phillips, they did not need backup singers.
Why would they have backup singers?
No.
Right. But
it's so silly, but they believed us.
That was our angle.
They believed us and called us down to the radio station.
Yes.
And so literally I can remember us going to the radio station like, I can't believe we just did this, but we just lied.
It was their
We're gonna have to tell the truth at some point here.
But it was their morning show.
The morning show.
And we sang the national anthem on the morning show. And all, like, at the time, it was a big thing when you heard the national anthem, everybody would turn their headlights on. And I remember my sister calling into the show. And then after she told me, she was like, I was literally on my way to work, and everybody on the interstate on I-275 heading into Tampa, downtown, like, for the work rush hour.
Right.
Everybody's headlights are on, and there you and I and Christy are on the radio singing the national anthem, and all these people are listening with their headlights on, like, national anthem. There we are, the backup singers for Wilson Phillips.
And I can remember vividly because the whole time I'm sitting there in my head, like, at some point I have got to tell them the truth.
Right.
And people were calling in and asking questions, and they're like, they sound like, what was the group?
The Lennon Sisters.
The Lennon Sisters.
The old group, the Lennon Sisters.
Yes,
that
and they would
harmony.
Right? Yeah. Oh, it was
so how
incredible.
did we ever just tell Scott? Or
yeah, we did.
Mason
so
Dixon,
after a while, after we sang with Survivor and all, at that point, we're like, we've got to come clean here. We've already shown them we can sing, so I'm going to tell them the truth now.
But why did they even believe us?
Why
did they think Wilson Phillips had?
Listen, I just believe it was one of those pivotal moments for us to where we put ourselves out there. I wouldn't recommend this, by the way.
Right.
But we did.
Right.
We put ourselves out there, and it was a pivotal moment for all of us.
Right.
But it was incredibly fun. I will say that.
Incredibly fun.
Yeah.
So many, like, such good memories.
Such great
memories. What was the song, Hold On For One More Day, right?
Yeah.
I think that's just a bit our theme. Hold on. Hold on for one more day.
That's it. That's exactly what it was. Good times. But
good times.
I'm super grateful for every memory.
Yes.
I'm grateful God's
Same.
allowed us to meet. I don't think anything happens by chance. And I would
I
say that,
agree.
I don't believe you run into people or meet people at any stage of life that it's an accident. Everything is
Mhm.
for a purpose. And so
Mhm.
if you can really look
For
at it
sure.
as such and value those people who are closest to you, we are so grateful to be able to work together. I'm grateful at least. So
Yes, same
thank
here.
you. Thank you,
Thank
Sharon,
you.
because I know I would not be who I am without you.
And same for me too.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
for all the memories and looking forward to all the ones that we continue
yep,
to make and all the Lord's doing.
that's right.
It's
And
awesome.
thanks so much for being here
Thank you
today.
so much.
Yep. All
It
right.
was fun. Bye, guys.